There's something quietly powerful about people who genuinely love staying at home. Not because they're antisocial, not because they're unmotivated, but because home feels like alignment. It feels like peace in a world that constantly asks for performance. For many people, staying home isn't about avoiding life. It's about regulating their nervous system. The outside world is loud. It's unpredictable. It demands constant micro-decisions. What to say, how to act, where to look, how to respond. Even enjoyable social interaction requires energy. You're reading body language, adjusting tone, staying alert. That's stimulation. Home is different. At home, the lighting is familiar. The sounds are controlled. The expectations are low. You're not being evaluated. You're not competing. You're not subconsciously comparing yourself to anyone. That predictability creates psychological safety. People who love staying home often have a lower tolerance for constant external input. Their brains simply process stimulation more deeply. Crowded rooms, traffic noise, social dynamics, it all adds up faster. So they choose environments where they can control the intensity. That's not weakness, that's self-awareness. There's also autonomy involved. At home, you choose the temperature, the clothes, the schedule. You decide whether to speak or stay silent. That level of control reduces stress in ways people don't always notice. And then there's the quiet joy of simple rituals, making coffee slowly, rearranging a space, listening to music without interruption, watching a favorite show without feeling rushed. These moments may look small from the outside, but psychologically, they create grounding. For people who love staying home, peace isn't boring, it's restorative. In a culture that celebrates constant movement, choosing stillness can feel almost rebellious. But sometimes, staying home isn't about hiding from the world. It's about building a space where your mind can finally exhale. Another important layer in the psychology of people who love staying at home is emotional safety. Home is often the only place where the social mask fully comes off. Outside, even in subtle ways, we perform. We adjust our tone at work, we filter opinions in group settings, we laugh at jokes that aren't that funny. We monitor how we're being perceived. That constant awareness, even when it's mild, requires energy. At home, that performance drops. You don't have to explain your silence. You don't have to compete for attention. You don't have to respond immediately. There's relief in that. For many people, especially those who are emotionally sensitive or highly observant, the outside world can feel like a constant stream of input. Home becomes the place where that stream slows down. There's also a deeper psychological factor: control during uncertainty. The modern world moves fast. News cycles change hourly. Social expectations shift. Technology keeps everyone reachable at all times. When life feels unpredictable, creating a stable home environment becomes grounding. The brain craves predictability. It lowers stress hormones and signals safety. People who love staying home often build intentional spaces. They care about lighting, comfort, layout, small details that make the environment feel like theirs. It's not about luxury, it's about familiarity. Familiarity calms the nervous system. It's also important to separate preference from avoidance. Some people stay home because they're overwhelmed. Others stay home because they genuinely enjoy their own company. From the outside, those behaviors look identical. Internally, they're completely different experiences. Healthy solitude feels peaceful. Avoidant isolation feels tense. Many home-loving individuals aren't trying to disconnect from life. They're trying to connect with themselves. They think deeply. They replay conversations. They analyze ideas. They reflect more than they broadcast. And in a noisy world, reflection becomes rare. For them, staying home isn't withdrawal. It's recalibration. There's also a strength that often gets overlooked in people who love staying at home. They are usually comfortable with themselves, and that's rarer than we admit. A lot of people stay constantly busy because silence feels uncomfortable. When there's no distraction, your thoughts get louder. Old memories surface. Doubts creep in. Questions about purpose, identity, relationships, they all rise to the surface when everything gets quiet. For some, that quiet feels threatening. But for someone who genuinely enjoys staying home, That quiet feels manageable, sometimes even nourishing. They've learned how to sit with their own thoughts without panicking. They've built routines that feel grounding, cooking slowly, cleaning intentionally, reading for hours, diving deep into a hobby without checking the clock. These aren't just activities, they're forms of self-connection. Spending time alone can strengthen emotional independence. When your happiness doesn't rely entirely on external stimulation, you develop internal stability. You don't need constant validation. You don't need noise to confirm your worth. You can generate calm from within. That doesn't mean they don't value people. In fact, many home-loving individuals value relationships deeply. They just prefer depth over frequency. One meaningful conversation can feel more fulfilling than a loud night surrounded by acquaintances. There's also a heightened observational quality that often develops in solitude. When you're not constantly talking, you start noticing. You notice patterns in behavior. You notice emotional shifts. You notice how environments affect you. That awareness builds emotional intelligence. However, balance matters. Loving home is healthy when it's a choice, not a fear-based escape. When it comes from preference, it builds strength. When it comes from anxiety, it can shrink the world. The difference is subtle but important. True comfort in staying home feels calm, not tense. And that calm becomes a foundation. At its core, the psychology of people who love staying at home is about alignment. It's about knowing what genuinely restores you instead of blindly following what the culture celebrates. We live in a world that equates movement with meaning. If you're always out, always networking, always traveling, always visible, you're seen as productive, interesting, successful. Staying home can sometimes carry an unfair label. People assume boredom, laziness, lack of ambition. But for many, staying home is not about shrinking life. It's about choosing quality over noise. Home becomes a personal ecosystem. It reflects identity. The books on the shelf, the layout of the room, the way the light hits in the evening. All of it creates emotional grounding. When your outer space feels aligned with your inner world, there's a sense of coherence. That coherence reduces stress in subtle but powerful ways. There's also something deeply mature about recognizing your limits. People who love staying home often know when their social battery is low. They don't push themselves into exhaustion just to keep up appearances. They rest before burnout happens. And because they rest properly, when they do engage with the outside world, they show up fully. They're present. They listen. They contribute intentionally. Staying home can also foster creativity. Without constant external input, the mind starts generating its own ideas. Reflection deepens, goals clarify, emotions get processed instead of suppressed. In stillness, thoughts organize themselves. Of course, balance is key. A healthy love of home expands your sense of peace. An unhealthy attachment to isolation can shrink opportunity. The difference lies in intention. Are you staying home because it fulfills you, or because you're afraid? When it's fulfillment, there's no shame in it. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do in a world that constantly pulls you outward is choose the space where you feel most whole.